I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who got taken for that much money. $25,000 gone in a blur of false promises and sweet talk lies. But Martin was persuasive in that quiet, deliberate way. Not the loud, flashy kind of con man who wore the scam like cologne. No, he rapped in the language of us, made it sound like we were partners, like every cent was going toward our future. He said it was for a business deal, a can't-miss investment that would triple in months. I wasn't rich, but I had savings. I'd been careful for years, budgeting down to the last grocery receipt. Martin knew that. He also knew I trusted him. I didn't hand over that money to a stranger. I handed it to the man I thought I'd marry. 3 weeks later, I found out the business deal never existed. The truth came in whispers first, from a mutual acquaintance who thought I already knew, then in photographs on social media. Martin, with a girl half my age, glowing in seaside selfies. She was wearing a ring I had unknowingly paid for. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. He just shrugged, said it was complicated, and that I wouldn't understand. His exact words? "It's not personal, Ellen. I just found someone more in line with where I'm heading. Not personal." $25,000 was apparently just a casual byproduct of his new direction. For a month, I stewed, not in heartbreak. At least not only heartbreak, but in a slow-burning, measured rage. I thought about lawyers, about police reports. But Martin had covered his tracks well. It would be my word against his. And he'd twist it until I looked like the bitter ex trying to ruin his happiness. Then, one night, over a glass of wine, my friend Sam dropped a piece of news that set everything in motion. "Did you hear? Martin's wedding is next month. Big fancy thing. Hotel ballroom, open bar, the works. He's inviting half the city." I didn't hear much after that. My brain was already spinning, assembling the pieces of an idea so delicious it felt like a gift. If Martin wanted a public celebration of his new life, I'd give him a public reminder of the old one. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of planning. I bought a pale gold dress. Formal enough to belong, but eye-catching enough to be noticed. I booked a hair appointment. I even rehearsed the exact tone I'd use: calm, composed, surgical. On the day of the wedding, I walked into that hotel ballroom like I was on the guest list. No one stopped me. Why would they? I looked the part. I even brought a card in a white envelope, which I carried like it held a heartfelt blessing. The ceremony had already happened. They were in the middle of the reception when I arrived. Martin spotted me from across the room. For a fraction of a second, I saw the color drain from his face. But the younger bride, Tessa, was too busy greeting guests to notice. I waited, patient, a predator in silk. When the band took a break and the clinking of glasses died down, I stepped toward the microphone the MC had been using. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying just enough to hush the nearest tables. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to give the happy couple my gift." Martin's jaw tightened. I held up the envelope and smiled warmly. "This is for you both. It's the $25,000 Martin borrowed from me last year. I thought it might help you start your life together." Gasps spread to the crowd like wildfire. Tessa turned to Martin, eyes wide. I kept going, smooth and unhurried. "You see, Martin told me it was for a business deal. But as it turns out," I glanced meaningfully at her ring, "he found a different way to invest it." The silence was heavy, charged. Then someone at the back let out a sharp laugh. Cameras were already raised, phones recording, flashes going off. I placed the envelope on their table. It was empty, of course. Symbolic. My real repayment was happening right then, in every shocked face and whispered conversation. Martin stepped forward, voice low and furious. "You've made your point. Now leave." I tilted my head. "Oh, I'm just getting started." I turned to Tessa, whose smile had crumbled entirely. "You should check the dates on his messages. Darling, you might find he was making long-term promises to more than one person while planning this wedding." That was my exit line. I walked away before Martin could grab my arm, the room buzzing in my wake. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already lighting up with messages from mutual acquaintances. "What did you do?" Martin just stormed out. Tessa's crying in the bathroom. Later, I'd hear that the wedding didn't survive the reception. The bride's family had pulled their financial support, and Martin had to explain, publicly, how exactly he'd funded the diamond on her finger. I never got my $25,000 back in cash. But watching him lose his perfect little fantasy in real time, worth every penny. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the hotel, ordered a cappuccino, and sat near the window where I could see the street. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me just wanted to see what chaos looked like when it spilled out into daylight. It didn't take long. 30 minutes later, the hotel doors burst open and Martin came striding out, his tie loose, jacket gone, his face a shade of red I hadn't seen since the night he locked himself out of his apartment. He was followed by Tessa. Her dress hiked slightly as she tried to keep up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Behind them came a flurry of bridesmaids, groomsmen, and at least 2 people I recognized from Martin's family. The shouting wasn't subtle. Even from my distance, I caught pieces of it. Lied to me. It was before we... Don't you dare talk about trust. They didn't go back inside. They split. Martin down the street, Tessa in the opposite direction with her maid of honor clinging to her arm. Guests started trickling out after that, some leaving quickly, others lingering outside in little gossip circles. By the time my cup was empty, the reception was over in all but name. I could have left it there, but a part of me, the part Martin had underestimated, wasn't done. I'd spent weeks planning my speech at the wedding, but I'd also spent a little time planning the after. Before walking into the hotel earlier, I had posted a short, polite statement to my social media. Just dropping by an old friend's wedding today to return a debt. $25,000, loaned under the promise of an investment, used to fund an engagement ring instead. Always nice to see how people value love and other people's money. By the time I got home, it had been shared more than I expected. Screenshots of me at the microphone had surfaced, along with clips from guests who had been filming for fun when it all went down. The comment sections were merciless. I thought Martin might try to contact me. Angry calls, threats, the usual bluster. But he didn't. He couldn't. Every time his name came up, it was in connection with the scam or the wedding incident. For someone who'd built his whole persona on charm and respectability, it was a death sentence. Tessa blocked me on everything, which I understood. Whether she believed me or not didn't matter. My words had planted something she'd never be able to unhear. One day, she'd realize she'd dodged a much bigger bullet. A month later, I heard through the grapevine that Martin had moved to another city for work opportunities, which was code for he'd run out of people to con here. Did I regret it? No. I didn't get my $25,000 back in cash, but I got something Martin could never buy or fake, my dignity, and the knowledge that, for once, the scammer didn't get the last laugh. The truth is, money can be earned again, but teaching someone like Martin that not every victim stays quiet, that's priceless. Weeks later, I bumped into Sam again, the friend who had first told me about the wedding. He smirked over his coffee. You know people are still talking about what you did, right? I shrugged. Let them. I didn't do it for the audience. But the truth? The audience was part of the justice. Martin had humiliated me in private. I'd simply returned the favor in a way he couldn't hide from. That night, I opened my laptop and checked my savings account. It wasn't $25,000 heavier, but the balance didn't bother me anymore, because I'd learned something far more valuable. Once you stop letting people get away with stealing pieces of you, whether it's money, time, or love, you stop being their victim. And Martin? He could keep the ring, the debt, and the memory of a wedding that turned into a public autopsy of his character. I had something better. Peace.